Welcome to Chris Strub Unmuted. I'm Chris Strub, and today we're talking fatherhood with the experience maker, Dan Gingiss.
I am a few months away from becoming an empty nester. And so I've been doing a lot of reflection because I'm not sure it is something that I'm looking forward to. And yet it's also a signal that everything's working as it should.
This is Chris Strub Unmuted, a show designed for open dialogue, honest reflection, and uncensored truths about the lives that we lead. Today's episode continues our season 6 series on fatherhood with one of my best friends, my boy, and the most overrated fantasy baseball player I've ever seen, Dan Gingiss. Dan, congratulations on a big win in week 14, whatever we just wrapped up in fantasy baseball, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Strub. I appreciate the view from up here in first place. And I know your view is a little bit different right now, but that's okay because half the fun is trash talking each other all summer long.
It's it's a good time. Now, longtime viewers might remember us. Dan, we hosted a show more than a decade ago now called Wine Down Wednesday. It is a Monday morning, so unfortunately, no wine for either one of us now. But Dan, our friendship dates way, way back. Do you remember how and when we connected? You want to share that story real quick?
Yes, of course, I remember exactly when we connected. We were at Social Media Marketing World, and we were sitting in a panel discussion on marketing to millennials. And we ended up sitting next to each other in the audience. And I looked over at you and pretty much pegged you as a millennial, which I am not. And I turned to you and I said, does it strike you as odd that this is a panel on marketing to millennials and there's not a single millennial up on stage? And you smiled, and I don't remember exactly what you responded, but a friendship was born at that point, and it's been amazing ever since.
Dan, it's been fun getting to get to know you over the years. We got to work together for a bit during your stint with Humana. Now you are an accomplished keynote speaker. You got the the experience maker brand, all polished up and just kicking butt all around the world. And of course, absolutely destroying me this season in your fantasy baseball league. Funny that you happen to be the commissioner and you're in first place. I mean, well, maybe we got to
Yeah, well, if there was something to that, I would be in first place a few more years, I would think.
it was fun. You look back on my Instagram, you'll see the fantasy baseball trophy for Dan's league that he's actually never seen, that I have seen, which is kind of fun. But Dan, with all of this cool stuff that you've done, Discover, Humana, McDonald's, and now the Experience Maker, there really is one job that I'm sure you would agree is the most important job that you do, which is dad. So tell me, and now your kids, of course, are going to be 10, 11 years older than they were when we met years ago. So you're in a different phase of fatherhood
Yeah.
now. So give me the download on the kids. Tell me about your experience with fatherhood. When did you want to be a dad? Wherever you want to start with the Mark and Sam story. Let's hear it.
Well, it's interesting because you catch me at a unique moment in time in that I am a few months away from becoming an empty nester. And so I've been doing a lot of reflection because I'm not sure it is something that I'm looking forward to. And yet it's also a signal that everything's working as it should. Right. And so I love that my kids have the opportunity to go to college. I love that they are learning to be independent. It is very fun for me to be with them as adults, and yet it also is a turning point. And being an empty nester has it just creates a whole bunch of feelings that I don't know whether I'm completely ready for. But I want to back up because when I was married and we were thinking of having kids, I remember reading this study that said that typically, not in every relationship, but that typically women look forward to the infant stages of having a baby because the baby is completely dependent on them, and they just their motherly instincts kick in, and it's just this beautiful time. And men typically look forward to the toddler and up stages because they want to do something. They want to throw a ball. They want to, whatever. And I would say for us, that was 100% accurate. I did not love the diaper stage and the up all night stage. And, of course, you love your kids from the moment you meet them, but it was stressful. I wasn't sure whether I was made for it. I wouldn't say that it was as fun as I had hoped. And then all of a sudden, there's this turning point where they start to become little people and you can start to throw a ball around or you can have an actual conversation. And I think that's where I started to hit my stride is I was like, okay, now I know what to do here. And this feels a lot more natural to me. And then as they've gotten older, I actually think I've enjoyed every older age even more than the previous years. And people often say that every age is fun, and I think that's generally true, although again, maybe exclude the first 2 years. But I've really, really enjoyed having adult children, having independent children, and it's just it's a totally different kind of relationship, but it's one that I've really embraced. And I guess the good news is that they're going to be adults for now as long as I know them. So I think that's a good thing.
Dan, what's one thing you wish you knew before you became a parent uh, that you know now?
So this is something that you learn when you have a second kid. And it's really simple. It's that you're not going to kill the first kid. Because that's the big worry when you have a kid is you're worried you're going to kill it. I mean, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
You're worried that they're going to suffocate in their sleep or that you're going to drop them or that like something's going to happen and you spend all this time worrying. And then by the time you get to the second one, you're like, all right, I got this. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to kill it. Right. And there's a level of confidence then in the second one that we definitely had. So I would say that certainly if I were talking to potential new parents, I would say that's a good thing to know ahead of time is it's really unlikely that you're going to kill your child. So don't worry about that one.
Was two always the number for the Genghis parents, for the Genghis family?
It
Marcus?
was for me. I would say if you asked my ex-wife, I think she would have wanted to keep going. And again, for the same reason, she liked the infant stage. So she was like, okay, now that they're toddlers, let's have another infant. And I'm like, heck no, I'm done with diapers. But I think also we were lucky enough to have a boy and then a girl. And I do think that um, from my experience with my friends, the ones that have two of the same gender are the ones more likely to go for a third. And ironically, almost every person I know that went for a third got the same gender a third time. So that might be something else I would warn people of is sometimes you just have those genes. But no, I thought both my ex-wife and I grew up with one sibling. So that's kind of what I knew. Ironically, I eventually, this is a longer story for another day, but I kind of inherited another sibling. I have a half brother as well, who I treat and call my brother because we're actually very, very close. But he was out of my life for a portion of growing up and then came back into it roughly when I was in high school. So I actually spent time as both the older of two children and then also the middle of three children. So it's kind of interesting when people ask, where you are in the birth order. I have multiple places.
All right. Yeah, Dan, that the story you're telling about that unconditional love for family, however it's defined, we will have touched on that at other points in the season. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to sequence out these episodes, but I spoke with my uncle the other day, and my aunt and uncle had one child naturally and then adopted a child. So another sort of story of just that unconditional love, no matter how you define exactly the family there. Um, Dan, I want to ask you, and I talked about this in another episode this season already with my buddy Matt Davis. You're another successful professional who travels a lot for work. So, how have you over the years balanced staying present with the kids while you've been on the road? And you travel probably more than anybody I've ever met. So, how do you manage being present with the kids at your home in Chicago or wherever you may travel with them? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, so when they were younger, I think it was they went through a stage where I got a lot of guilt and they didn't want daddy to leave and so that was tough, but also they had their mom and I knew they were well taken care of. My ex always had more of an office job, so like she was not traveling nearly as much. Um, and I always made sure that I was there for really big things. So, I never missed a graduation or anything like that. I tried very hard not to travel on their birthdays, that sort of a thing. But yeah, I mean, I missed a couple of soccer games and baseball games and stuff. And what I would do to counterbalance that is, especially on the weekends, I would never miss a game. And if I wasn't traveling, I was at every game, even if it meant stopping work early, I would go. And I wanted to be their biggest cheerleaders. In fact, as you know, being a fellow sports fan, I love sports, and I'll tell you, rooting for your kids playing sports, even if it's little league up to high school, whatever, it is a lot of fun. I even got into lacrosse because my daughter was playing, and I didn't know a dang thing about lacrosse, but boy, it was fun to be out there rooting for her team and for her. Um, as they got older and as they got into their teenage years, it's funny how quickly it shifts to they didn't care that dad was traveling. Like it doesn't affect their life anymore. Plus, we've got devices, and so it's easier to stay in touch. And so I don't think that was nearly as big of a deal. Um, I was able to bring my daughter on at least one business trip, and that was cool because there, as you know, there is a big story. I would say a signature story in my customer experience keynote that is about my daughter, and so she got to be in the audience once as a teenager, and I made her after I told the story, I made her stand up because no one knew she was in the room. It was really cool, and she got a huge round of applause and all that. I'm still trying to get my son on a business trip with me. It's more just that schedules haven't aligned because, again, once they get into high school and college, they're just so busy. They're as busy as I am. And so it's very difficult to align schedules. There is also a story in my keynote about my son. So he has not gotten to see that live yet, but we'll make it happen at some point. Now we are talking about he's going to be 21 in February, and I've been promising him for a very long time that I'm taking him to Vegas when he turns 21. So I'm excited to start planning that trip.
And he can finally have his first alcoholic drink of the
I
season,
know, I know. It's going to be so
right?
exciting.
Mark, this is called beer. This is
Yeah, doesn't know anything about that.
no, no, nothing at all. Shout out. Mark is such a cool guy, man. Your kids are awesome. Um, Dan, talk to me about this. You're talking about them about becoming an empty nester now, and your kids are really deciding what they want to do kind of with their adult lives. Like, how
Yeah.
do you manage advising them? Like, full disclosure, you've been amazing to me over the years in helping craft a lot of the different steps of my own career. So, what is it like now that your kids are reaching that age where they're kind of, again, fleeing the nest and deciding what they want to do and who they really want to be? Like, are you, do you kind of keep a hands-off approach to that, or are you more kind of trying to open doors for them? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I have done my best to sort of let them be who they want to be and always be there for them when they want me. Like anything, I mean, all of us have gone through periods of time where we think our parents are the smartest people in the world and we think our parents have no idea what's going on, right? And so as the recipient of that, there are times where I think that for example, for me to talk about when I was in college, I mean, I just had my 30th reunion. So, like, I was in college a long time ago. And so, is college the same today as it was when I was there? Probably not. I know one change, for example, is that students are now expected coming out of high school to know exactly what they want to major in and what they want to do as a career, which I think is crazy. I didn't even know what I wanted to do as a career when I graduated college. So, and it certainly wasn't being a professional speaker. So that wasn't on the bingo card at the time. Um, but I also think that you see your kids go through stuff that is familiar. And it could be struggling in a class. It could be breaking up with a boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be, just the general stress of life. And I think that's where I feel like I have a credible role to play, as somebody to listen, as somebody to give advice when they want it, and really as someone just to be encouraging. I, one of the things my parents did that I thought was pretty cool. And one thing I should back up and say, when you co-parent with somebody, one of the interesting things is that each person comes into it with a different perspective because they had their own parents, and that's the perspective we tend to know. Is like, well, you learn everything about parenting from your own parents, and what you learn is the things that you think they did well and the things you maybe didn't like. But then someone else comes in with different perspectives of what their parents did well and didn't do well. Anyways, one of the things I really liked that my parents did is they always told us their policy was A's, B's, and C's are your problem. D's and F's are our problem. And essentially, what they said is, we're not going to bother you if you get A's, B's, and C's. Know that if you get more C's than A's, that's going to affect where you go to college, but that's up to you. And so, if you want to work hard and get the A's, great. And if you don't, then there's consequences to it. And then we're here, if you're really falling down, and D's and F's are, that's a different kind of problem. Luckily, neither my sister or I ever had that problem, which was good. I adjusted it a little bit with my kids, for whatever reason. I think because I was pretty well educated, and so was my ex-wife. I knew they were going to be smart kids, and so I changed it a little bit to A's and B's are your problem, and C's, D's, and F's are our problem. Um,
I think
and I
that,
think
yeah.
what worked with that so well is both of my kids were incredibly self-motivated for grades. I didn't have to push them at all. They wanted the good grades. And so which was great. And we really barely had to have conversations about grades, because they were doing really well themselves. And so I can't remember what the question was or why I went down this path, but that I think was the answer to what you were asking me.
Dan, I want to flip things on their head here as we just have a few more minutes. I talked a lot about your role as, parent to both your kids. What is something that maybe you've learned from your children that's made you a better speaker or a better professional over the years?
Well, I'm actually fascinated by teenagers and young adults today because they're so different than even when you were a teenager or young adult, and you're significantly younger than I am. This Gen Z, much like I think everybody realized that the millennial generation was super different, the Gen Z generation is quite different from millennials and very different from Gen X.
Yeah.
And so I think they teach me a lot about why certain brands become popular, what kinds of experiences they're looking for in life. And I mean, as customers, but also as just humans, that may or may not be different from what you were looking for or what I was looking for. And so I pay a lot of attention to that. And it's funny, my daughter loves to follow TikTok trends. And so she is a very fast follower. If there's a new shoe or a new piece of jewelry or something that everybody's wearing, she loves to be a part of that. And my question to her is always like, well, who decided that this was popular? Like, or she'll come home, she'll be singing a song by John Mellencamp. I'm like, why is John Mellencamp on TikTok? Like who decided that he should be going viral again? And I love John Mellencamp, so I'm not complaining. I just don't understand it. Whereas my son is very much the opposite. He is kind of anti anything trendy. So I took him into a shoe store once, that had pretty much every Nike and Adidas and New Balance and everything you could possibly buy. And he's like, I don't want anything in here. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like most kids are like, and I told him, I'm like, dude, you need new shoes. I'm happy to buy you new shoes. He's like, yeah, this isn't where I want to shop. And I asked him, why not? And he said, because everybody wears these same shoes and it's not what I want to do. And so I think you can learn a lot from that and watching really both tracks, in terms of So where does he turn? What brands does he turn to if it's not those super big brands, and why? What draws him to it? And I've been really fascinated. I think you and I talked offline once about, I had hopes at one point of starting a podcast that was all about the teenage customer experience and having my kids host it. Because I think there's so much for companies to learn about how teenagers and early 20s decide on the brands they want to do business with, literally from the credit card that they get to the places they go out to eat, to the shoes they wear, to all of it. And it is really, really different from when I was growing up. It was like whatever was in the mall is kind of what drove the brands that I liked. Oh, hey, there's a J. Crew store. I'll walk into that. That's how I found things. It's not at all how they do it today. So that's the part that I've learned.
Dan, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a busy guy. It's Monday, so let's get you out on this. You talk about becoming an empty nester, and it's going to be sad, but in reality, not really an empty nester because both of us share one thing that we are both dog dads. Unfortunately, Link's not here with me. She's aborted training this week, but tell me about your experience of being a dog dad and how you've learned to translate some of your experience as a human dad into being a dog dad.
Well, speaking of unconditional love, I mean, there's just nothing like a dog's unconditional love, and it's amazing. And so I adopted Larry from a shelter. He is a pretty much 98% pit bull, which is probably the most misunderstood dog breed. He is the sweetest, most loving dog. There's really nothing aggressive about him at all. And I think the timing of it was good because I was sort of looking ahead into this empty nester thing and being like, all right, I don't really want to be all by myself in a house, listening to all the creaks. I want to have somebody with me, and so having the pup has been amazing. But the empty nester thing, we'll have to talk again in 6 or 9 months when I'm in it. I think right now it's more just the anticipation and trying to figure out how I, I look at life as a book and a series of chapters. I was married once. That was a chapter in my life. Now I'm not married and I'm dating, and that's a chapter in my life. And being an empty nester is going to be a chapter. And I don't really know what's going to be written in it yet. But so at the exact moment we're in right now, it's more just thinking about it, anticipating it, trying to figure out maybe changes that I want to make in my life. For example, one of the things I've been wanting to do is spend some of the winter months outside of Chicago in warmer weather. And, as an empty nester, it's a little bit easier to do that. And hey, maybe South Carolina is a good place to come.
85 degrees
Uh,
today here, Dan.
yeah, well, it's about 82 here in Chicago today.
We're
So,
gonna
but
drive
but
back in town tomorrow.
it wasn't in March. In March, you had a lot better weather than I did. So those are the kinds of things going through my head now.
Dan, first time guest on Chris Strub Unmuted. I can promise this won't be the last time we have you on. You and I could literally talk for hours. Many times we have. We got to work together a few years ago, both at Humana and then in our separate roles as speakers and all this stuff. And now I just end up beating you every single summer in fantasy baseball. It's a great way to keep in touch. Dan Gingiss, one of my favorite dudes. I love you like a brother, man. Thank you for agreeing to be in season 6 of Chris Strub Unmuted. Anything else you want to add before we wrap things up? Let you get back to work.
I'm all good, man. Love you right back. And thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to Chris Strub Unmuted. Support the show by clicking like and subscribe. Keep up with me on social media at Chris Strub. And remember, we are all famous to a few people. This is good. Oh boy.